What up? Today be March 11th, and as of today, March 11th, nobody's won the tools for the Merry Christmas Spider 15,000 subscriber giveaway. A lot of people are out there looking for this thing. Once again, it's time for another clue. The video that this spider's located in was released in 2015. So a summary of the clues so far. We know it's in a Trailblazer or Tahoe video. We know it's somewhere under the hood in the engine bay somewhere. We also know that it's within the first 3 minutes and 55 seconds of the video. We know that the video involves electrical testing, and now we know that it was released in 2015. So if that's what you came for, we're done. Well, I'm not done. I still got to do this whole caliper and shit on this Silverado, but we're done. Thanks for watching. Good luck, and remember, Merry Christmas, Spider. I just gotta loosen these lugs. Here, do you want you let me do that shit? You put those on there. At least you're not wearing sandals this time. So with the wheel lugs loose, raised up the truck, set up the jack stand. You can see we had to use a little bit of wood to get the jack and the jack stand up a little bit higher. I'm also going to go ahead and hose this fitting off before we get started, since it's coming off later. Probably hasn't been off since 2003. Coming off a lot easier now with the gloves on. That's on our clicks, huh? Things on there pretty good, man. Well, this tire was supposed to be a fast and easy removal, but this is how it is sometimes. That ain't gonna be good for the grass. The grass won't squeak anymore. I'm gonna pinch off the brake hose so I don't lose a lot of fluid, you know, when I crack this line right here. And I'm cracking the line before I take the caliper off so I have some leverage on that bolt. We have to reuse the bolt, so it's got to come off. And it's a lot easier to do it with the caliper still installed. With the caliper and the caliper bracket, I crack both bolts loose before I take either one of them out. And with both bolts removed, the caliper comes off. Now you can see here the inboard pad, it's pretty much worn down to nothing, while the outboard pad still has some material left on it. I'm also going to pull out the outboard pad. You don't really have to do that, you could have just took it out with the bracket. I'm also going to swing this hose out of the way so he can't get in any trouble. Kind of dark in here, so you might not be able to see exactly what I'm doing while I'm doing it, but these are the two caliper bracket bolts that I'm going to be removing. And just be warned, they may be very, very, very tight. GM was not cheap when it came to the Loctite on these. And just like with the caliper, I'm going to go ahead and break both of the caliper bracket bolts loose first. We're just going to use a little bit of brake cleaner just to spray off this crap. Not going crazy or nothing. I ain't trying to detail the shit. So I'm going to go ahead and put the clips back in the caliper and the bracket. If you're not sure how these things go in there, you can take the old caliper and the old caliper bracket and use them to compare where the new hardware goes. Sometimes it can be a bitch, I'm not even going to lie. Just going to put some brake grease in here, these little grooves. Just wherever the pad's going to touch this bracket. Fuck that motherfucker. And then while I'm here, might as well just do this. Just a little bit of grease on these things. Nothing crazy. I put brake grease wherever there's going to be contact, metal on metal contact. So the caliper piston, even the back side of the caliper here where the outboard pad touches the caliper, just a little bit of grease. My preference. A lot of people don't agree with it, don't really give a fuck. It's worked for me for many, many years. So now I'm just going to get the caliper bracket and the caliper, mount it back up here. These caliper bracket bolts, I'm not going to torque them down. I'm just going to use a 1/2 inch drive ratchet and really give it all I got, you know what I mean? So I'm going to go ahead and install the brake pads here. Once I get them in, I'm going to give them a little wiggle test just to make sure they're not stuck. They should be able to move back and forth kind of freely. If you guys remember earlier, I soaked this thing down, made it real easy to pop it loose. So go ahead and spin this thing off. Now I don't want this bitch dumping fluid everywhere. So I'm just going to take the bleeder cap off the old caliper. So there's 2 notches in the bracket and there's 2 tabs on the hose. They just align with each other. There's not really a way you can get that messed up. And then I'm going to use pliers as a hammer to get the clip back in. I didn't really go over this in detail when I did the video, but there's 2 copper washers. One goes on each side of the line. I'm going to go ahead and start him by hand first. before I go back and snug it up, you know, with the ratchet. I have a helper who's been putting in some work here. What is all this? What did you do?
I do.
Same thing here. I'm going to thread the fitting in by hand first, and then I'm going to go back with a wrench and really snug her down. Now this thing I think was like a 15 millimeter or something. I didn't have a 15 millimeter flare. Technically you're supposed to use a flare wrench, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Now once I get the hose connected to the brake line and the caliper, I go back and I spray everything down with brake clean and clean it up real good. The reason is sometimes no matter how tight you think you got it, you might not have got it all the way tight. If you've got fluid everywhere, it might be hard to see a little bit of seepage. Got a Mr. 10 millimeter on this bleeder screw. Just gonna crack him loose. I'm just gonna sit here and wait for the fluid to drip out of this thing. By leaving the bleeder fitting cracked and waiting a little while, fluid will eventually work its way down through the hose, through the caliper, start dripping out a little bit, and that's just going to make the brake bleed procedure a little bit easier.
Oh, careful.
Fluid started coming out of the caliper. So I'm going to tighten him back up. Then we're going to do the brake bleed procedure. You guys have probably seen it a bunch of times already, so we're not going to go and cover the whole shebang. Now I'm going to put this paper towel right here so I don't get jizzed on. Alright, go ahead. Alright, again. So everything's cool. We got it bled, caliper, hose, rotor, pads. So we're going to get this shit cleaned up and get this wheel on here.
It's 10 o'clock and I gotta wear my sunglasses.
I'm going to go to the bar and not drink.
And not have a beer and just sit there all pissed off. And not look at girls.
Dare you guys come out and try to have a good time.
I can't believe you guys actually went to the bar to have a drink.
That'll never work.
We're just going to wipe some of this never sees on here. Because as you've seen, we had a hard time getting that wheel off. So hopefully this will help.
Oh, what happened to the clothes in the back of the truck?
What do you mean?
There's clothes on the back of the truck. I was drying them out.
Where were they?
I laid them on the bumper.
I never knew they were on there. The way we do this, we make a couple polite stops from like 25 miles an hour. We're also looking for my son's clothes. If I remember right, it was blue shorts, some Olaf underwear, and a shirt. So in the video, you guys saw the brakes on the driver's side rear, and it would be exactly the same for the passenger side rear. But in this case, we didn't touch the passenger side. Now that might sound totally crazy because chances are, at one point or another, somebody's probably tried to tell you that you need to replace the calipers in pairs. So if we were doing the left rear, we should also do the right rear. But I don't do things like that. It's easy to go and say, oh, you should do both sides, when you're not the one paying the bill. And I'll tell you what, even though that Silverado is not mine, if it was mine, I would have done the exact same thing. A shop doesn't want to go and put new pads and rotors on and do one caliper and a hose, and then a week later you come back because now there's a problem with the right rear caliper. I get that. They want to cover all the bases. They want to minimize the chance of you coming back, and that's cool for the people like us that are doing this shit ourselves. we don't have to worry about stuff like that. If we knew that we had a problem with just the left rear caliper, we can go ahead and just do the left rear caliper. We don't have to worry about it coming back, because who the fuck are we going to take the car back and complain to? Ourselves? You know, for the longest time, everybody told me, gotta do the calipers in pairs. You gotta do calipers and hoses. Do it all and do them in pairs. That's great, but my opinion on all that changed when I worked at the dealership. There was numerous times where a car would come in with a failed caliper while it was still under the manufacturer's warranty, and the manufacturer paid us to do one caliper, and that was it. I can't say that every manufacturer is the same, but I know that for the one I work for, that's the way it was. The people that built the car said, hey, the left rear caliper failed on this truck and we're paying the bill. We're only going to pay for the left rear caliper. How vital is it then that the right rear caliper be replaced at the same time? You know what, come to think of it, we can also get into the argument about, should we have put the pads on the right rear of that Silverado? We didn't do it. Those pads still had like 8-9 millimeters of friction material left. There wasn't anything wrong with the caliper or the rotor, so we just let it ride. All the work that we just did on that Silverado was actually filmed about 9 months ago. Just last weekend I went for a ride in that truck. There wasn't no problems with the brakes or anything like that. Everything's still cool. It is possible that you can get by just doing one side.